Welcome to Retirement with Jim. So today, is retirement changing so much that is many viewpoints, it's collapsing. So interesting topic to talk about today. So before we get started, if you like my channel, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, helps my channel grow. So with that, let's get started. So some people believe that retirement is just collapsing. It's just out of reach altogether. Um, the safety nets that were put in place are just not out there anymore. You know, pensions are a bygone era. They're gone. That's something that just doesn't exist anymore. People really don't save like they used to save. A lot of companies once, that's why pensions went away. When the 401ks came along, companies viewed that as an easy way for them just to get out of having to set aside money for, pensions and manage that, for people's the rest of their lives. It became something that you manage, and let's face it, when, the 401ks first started, there wasn't a lot of knowledge and a lot of learning that was available. You really had to learn on your own. There's a much more wealth of information available now in regards to 401k to help you put money aside and to save. But there's a lot of other factors that go into what happens in everyday life right now that make, people just not save or not save properly. People have this overwhelming, the next generations have the overwhelming fear that, things are just not going to be there for them and they're going to have to work the rest of their lives. Now, with people living longer does not necessarily mean you have to work longer, but there is that mentality that does exist that says, because I'm going to live, a much longer life, I should work a longer life. Not necessarily agree with that, but like anything else, there's a lot of things that come into play. Inflation, the housing market. The housing cost back in the 1980s, the average home was between $60,000 and $70,000. Today, the average cost of a new home is $400,000. So it's easy to understand that we have a housing crisis when, the cost has just, gone absolutely through the roof. Now, it doesn't mean, we all buy homes. We want to be able to have the value of that home go up. And so, within reason, we want to see that grow. But now when it grows at such a rate that the next generations can't get in, and it also then what happens is people just say, okay, I'm going to sit on my house. I'm not selling it. I can't get the money I want out of it. Or they have a really low interest rate. They're going, I'm not going to sell. Why am I going to sell? I have a 2 or 3% interest rate. And if I sell, the best I'm going to be able to do, even with profit, if I have to get another home, is now looking at the current interest rates, which was, 6% or higher. So, the economy has changed, quite a bit. Even downsizing has become expensive. People just say, and that's what my wife and I did. We downsized. We went from a home that was, just a little under 3,000 square foot, and we live in a much smaller home that is 1,000 square feet. And quite honestly, we're very happy with it. You get to a certain stage of your life, you're going, I don't want to be a slave to my house. I don't want to have to take care of it. The cost of owning that home are up dramatically. The cost to heat it, cool it, maintain it, fix things that break over time. All of that costs money. So we downsized and we got rid of a lot of stuff. We actually we gave a lot of stuff away. when we downsized. We didn't go into it trying to make money and profit on everything we had. We felt it was better to give things away, furniture, different things that still had plenty of life in it, and give it to people who were looking to, get a deal and step up in their lives. And, when you do something like that, you actually get to feel better about yourself because you're helping somebody else along the way. But when you look at things like rent, for instance, your rent pre-pandemic was going up on an average of 2.8 to 3.4% a year, an average, which was right around the cost of inflation. Nothing terrible. Now, after the pandemic, cost of rents are going up 5.11 to almost 8%, 7.95 on average. So, the cost of renting is no longer a cheap occurrence. It's up there too. So, savings and retirement accounts, the savings and retirement accounts on average have $200,000 in them. But what they don't tell you is if you factor in all the people that have no money saved, there's zero, and you factor those zeros in, that $200,000 average is a lot closer to zero than you could imagine. So people, they need to get financial help. You need to diversify if you do have money, in the 401k to make sure that your 401k, stays balanced and in these really tough times. With the markets being up and down, the market, has still done pretty well. So it's still a great savings vehicle for, your retirement. You got to think about, what you're saving and putting away, because no one's going to do it for you. So you have to be your own advocate. You have got to make sure that you're taking advantage of, what money you do put away. If you have a 401k that you could possibly earn free money from the company that they offer. I had that. They put it in my company. If you contributed, at the time you got anything under 4%, they matched funds and added to it. So it was really a great way to get free money. So my point on that is, take advantage of every opportunity you can to make that money grow. And as much as the future doesn't always look solid, everything does go in cycles. The stock market is up, it's down, but for the long run, it's there. So there are things that are changing with retirement. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all doom and gloom. And a lot of people out there saying that, retirement is just collapsing and it's just out of reach. And, I don't agree with that. I think that retirement is, within reach, But the next thing on that list is healthcare. Healthcare is a ticking time bomb. It can wipe you out in one swoop with one disease, with one medical emergency, cancer, something, heart attack, strokes. You can suddenly find yourself being wiped out in terms of your savings. So it's certainly something to think about and take care of and plan for, because one thing that people don't plan for, they're not like they should. And I can tell you that once you get older, you're going to have medical issues. I have my own, but you have to really work at staying healthy. And boy, if I had any one wish to go back to, I wish I had been more thoughtful about my health early on to be healthier now. When you're young, you're just like you're immortal. Oh, nothing's ever going to touch me. I'm going to be fine. I had a heart attack at 53 years old. It wasn't so fine. At 53, that's pretty darn young. So if I had to do over, I'd give my health a whole lot more consideration, and I would have changed more of my lifestyle to be healthier now. I'm working on it now, and that's good. But one piece of advice: do it early. Start looking at what you consume and how active you are and what you do, because it can be something that can cost you dearly. You know, even if you survive, it can wipe you out financially. Medical bankruptcy is one of the leading causes of debt. That people go into so much debt and they're wiped out. So, got to think about that. You know, Medicare isn't free, it doesn't cover all, you know. So it's important to take better care of yourself because of that. And when you think about it, healthcare costs have gotten completely out of control. So, so in the final analysis, I think that, you need to stay flexible. Don't be so rigid in your thinking that, it's just not going to work and I can't save any money. You you can do side hustles, you can do part-time work, moving, just keep moving, and stay active, to help with better health, just even the smallest little gesture. And debt, take a look at your debt. Make sure you're on a budget, and if you have to, redo your budget. But stay true to that budget, because you can with some discipline. And it all can be done, but it requires more planning and discipline, and sometimes sacrifice more than ever before. People don't want to sacrifice their lifestyle. Okay, I get it, but then are you prepared for what it's going to take and what it's going to cost? Because if you're not, then you have to make a few sacrifices in your life to secure what is going to be that long-term um, financial for your future. So take a look at that. I think that, is it changing? Sure, retirement has changed, and the way we go about having to save for it has changed dramatically. Is it collapsing? No, I don't think so. You hear a lot of people really whine about it, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Tell me if you agree, you disagree. Really glad to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to tell you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.